The observation deck of the Karthex warship hummed with anticipation as Commander Vex'lar adjusted his optical sensors, watching the small human vessel drift closer to the asteroid belt. His mandibles clicked in what his species considered amusement. "Another foolish mammal," he muttered to his second officer, Trill-X, whose 4 eyes blinked in synchronized agreement. "They always think they can outrun us in these debris fields." The human ship was pathetic, really. A modified cargo hauler with some bolted-on weapons that would barely scratch their hull plating. Vex'lar had been hunting pirates and smugglers in this sector for 12 cycles. And humans? They were always the easiest prey. Soft bodies, limited sensory perception, and that ridiculous need for constant oxygen intake. Evolution had clearly been drunk when it designed them. "Initiate tractor protocols," Vex'lar commanded, his 3-fingered hand hovering over the communications array. "Let's pull this pest in and see what contraband they're carrying this time." The beam lanced out, invisible but powerful, catching the human vessel in its grip. Standard procedure. They would reel it in, board it, confiscate whatever illegal cargo was aboard, and toss the human into a detention cell for processing. Simple, routine, boring. Except the human ship didn't slow down. Trill-X's sensor stalks quivered. "Commander, the vessel is resisting the tractor beam." "Impossible. Increase power to 70%. The deck vibrated as energy surged through the beam emitters. Still, the human ship pulled forward, engines screaming in defiance. Vex'lar felt his blood temperature rise, a sign of irritation in his species. 80%, he barked. The human vessel shuddered but continued forward, now actively diving deeper into the asteroid field where the Karthex warship couldn't safely follow with the tractor beam engaged. "This makes no sense," Trill-X whispered, his voice carrying that peculiar harmonic his species used for confusion. "The structural integrity of that ship should have collapsed at 60%. The pilot should be paced against the walls right now." Vex'lar watched as the human ship executed a barrel roll that shouldn't have been possible at that velocity, slipping behind a tumbling piece of rock the size of a small moon. His mandibles stopped clicking. "Get me a visual on that pilot," he demanded. The screen flickered to life, and there she was. Human. Female, if his xenobiology training was correct. Dark hair pulled back in what they called a ponytail, which Vex'lar had always found absurd since humans had no tails. She was grinning, frightening, as her hands danced across her control panel with movements too fast for his sensors to fully track. "Open a channel," he said. The woman's face filled the screen, and her grin widened. "Oh, good. You want to talk? I was worried this would be one of those boring shoot-first situations. I hate those. No personality, you know?" Her accent was strange, not the standard human dialect he'd encountered. There was something sharp about it, like broken glass wrapped in honey. "I am Commander Vex'lar of the Karthex Unity Fleet. You are in violation of 12 separate transit codes and are hereby ordered to power down your engines and prepare for boarding." She laughed. She actually laughed, and it wasn't the nervous titter he usually heard from humans facing superior firepower. This was genuine amusement. "Yeah, see, here's the thing, Vex. Can I call you Vex? I'm kind of on a schedule, and getting arrested doesn't fit into my afternoon plans. I've got a delivery to make, and I don't like being late. It's unprofessional." Vex'lar's primary eye twitched. "You are currently caught in our tractor beam with enough power running through it to crack your ship's spine. You will comply, or you will be destroyed." "Caught is such a strong word," she said, her fingers still moving across her console. "I prefer to think of it as temporarily inconvenienced." Trill-X, increased to 90%, full power. His second officer hesitated, which was unusual. "Commander, at that output, the human's internal organs will liquefy from the gravitational shear. It's excessive." "She's clearly enhanced somehow. Do it!" The beam intensified, and Vex'lar watched the human woman's face on the screen, waiting for the grimace of pain, the blood vessels bursting in those ridiculous single-lens eyes they had. Instead, her grin shifted into something else, something that made his survival instincts, honed over thousands of generations, suddenly start screaming. "My turn," she said softly. Her ship's engines flared with light that shouldn't have been possible from a cargo hauler. Blue-white thrust that read on his sensors as his mandibles fell open, 40% beyond maximum human engine specifications. The tractor beam didn't just break. It shattered, feedback screaming through his ship's systems as the woman's vessel shot forward like a bullet, straight toward them. "Evasive maneuvers!" Vex'lar shouted, but his crew was already moving, their training overriding their shock. The Karthex warship, 15 times the size of the human's cargo hauler, lurched sideways, too slow. The human ship skimmed their hull close enough that Vex'lar heard the proximity alarms shrieking, and then she was past them, looping back around with a grace that made his tactical display look like it was malfunctioning. "Weapons! Fire at will!" Plasma bolts lanced through space, tracking algorithms locked on the human vessel. She dodged, not with the predictable evasion patterns his computer expected, but with movements that seemed almost random, yet perfectly timed. Every shot missed by centimeters, and his weapons officer was making a high-pitched keening sound that indicated extreme stress. "How is she doing this?" Trillax demanded, all 4 of his eyes locked on different sensor displays. "Her reaction time is 3 times faster than human neural pathways should allow." The human ship spun, and suddenly she was behind them, in the perfect firing position. Vex'lar braced for impact, but no weapons fire came. Instead, her voice crackled over the still-open channel. "You know what I love about you Karthex types? You're all so confident, so sure that your bigger ships and your fancy technology make you the apex predators of this sector. It's adorable, really, like watching a toddler flex." "Who are you?" Vex'lar found himself asking, and he hated the uncertainty in his own voice. "The name's Kira Webb, and I'm just a delivery driver trying to make an honest living. Well, mostly honest. 70-30 split, if we're being accurate. The point is, I've got a package that needs to reach Terminus Station in 4 hours, and you've cost me 7 minutes I can't get back. You're wanted by the Unity Council for 16 counts of smuggling. 17, actually. You guys missed the one where I transported those singing crystals from the Melodian homeworld. That was a weird job. They wouldn't shut up the entire flight. Anyway, I'm going to need you to, and I'm being very polite here, get out of my way." Vex'lar's diplomatic training warred with his tactical instincts. "You are one small ship. I have 6 fighters I can launch in 30 seconds, each with enough firepower to reduce you to atoms." Kira's expression shifted, and for the first time, Vex'lar saw something other than amusement in those strange, forward-facing eyes. He saw calculation, cold, precise calculation. "Launch them," she said simply. "I could use the practice." And despite every rational thought in his enhanced brain, despite 12 cycles of military experience, Commander Vex'lar found himself actually considering letting her go. There was something about this human, something that his instincts recognized even if his pride wouldn't admit it. Danger. Real danger. "Launch the fighters," he ordered anyway, because pride was often stronger than survival instinct. The bay doors opened, and 6 sleek Karthex interceptors screamed into space, their pilots all veterans, all trained to hunt prey exactly like this. They spread into attack formation Alpha, a pattern that had never failed to either destroy or capture a target in Vex'lar's entire career. Kira Webb's ship didn't run. It accelerated straight toward them. "She's insane," Trillax breathed. "Good," Vex'lar said, though his mandibles had stopped clicking entirely. Insane is predictable. Except nothing about the next 90 seconds was predictable. The human ship met the fighter formation head-on, and then it danced. There was no other word for it. While his pilots fired everything they had, Kira's vessel moved through the weapons fire like water through fingers, never where the targeting computers predicted, always 3 moves ahead. And she was talking the entire time, her voice streaming over the open channel. "Left wing guy, you're, pulling your shots. Confidence, buddy. Center formation. Nice try with the pincer move, but I saw that coming when you launched. Oh, and the one trying to flank from below? Yeah. That asteroid to your 6? You might want to." The explosion lit up his tactical display as the flanking fighter's pilot, focused entirely on Kira, flew straight into a chunk of rock, moving at 17,000 kilometers per hour. "Watch your surroundings," Kira finished. "Just saying." 2 more fighters collided with each other, trying to track her through a particularly tight spiral, and the remaining 3 broke formation, which was the first sign that his pilots were panicking. "All units, regroup," Vex'lar commanded, but his voice sounded hollow even to himself. Kira's ship suddenly stopped, just hovering in space, and her face appeared on his screen again, still grinning. "You know what? I'm feeling generous today. Maybe it's the coffee I had this morning. Maybe it's because that last delivery paid double. But I'm going to make you an offer, Vex. I don't negotiate with smugglers. Sure you do. You just don't call it that in your reports. Here's the deal. I need to get to Terminus Station. You need to not look incompetent when your superiors ask why you let a single human cargo hauler embarrass your entire warship and fighter wing. So how about we both pretend this never happened? I go my way, you go yours, and we write this off as a sensor glitch. Everyone wins." Vex'lar's pride wanted to refuse, wanted to call in reinforcements, to turn this entire asteroid belt into a kill zone just to capture this insufferable mammal. But his practical side, the part that had kept him alive through 2 major conflicts and countless smaller skirmishes, was already calculating the costs. 6 fighters destroyed or damaged. Crew morale shattered. A tractor beam system that would need complete replacement. And all for what? To capture 1 smuggler who would probably escape custody within a week? Anyway, if the rumors about human adaptability were even half true. "How did you modify your ship to perform like that?" he asked instead. Kira's grin softened into something almost respectful. "That's the question you should have led with. The answer is, I didn't. Not really. The ship's pretty standard. It's the pilot that makes the difference. Humans, we've got this thing where we're not particularly good at anything specific. We're slow compared to some species, weak compared to others. Our senses are mediocre at best. But we've got something you don't. And what's that? We're stubborn. Unreasonably, illogically stubborn. Tell a human something can't be done, and we'll break our backs trying to prove you wrong. Tell us we're outmatched, and we'll find a way to even the odds. Tell us to bow." Her eyes glinted. "We'll learn to break instead." Vex'lar was silent for a long moment, his mind processing this declaration. In all his studies of human psychology, no one had quite put it that way before. "There's a saying in the Unity Fleet," he finally said, "know when to fight and know when to let the storm pass." "Is that your way of saying I can go?" "That's my way of saying I'm experiencing a critical system failure that requires my immediate attention. What happens in this sector while I'm dealing with that is beyond my current capacity to monitor." Kira laughed again, but this time there was warmth in it. "You're all right, Vex. For a guy who tried to liquefy my organs, I mean. Tell you what, you ever need a package delivered somewhere the official channels can't reach? You look me up. Professional courtesy. I'm a Unity Fleet commander. I would never— Sure, the offer stands anyway. Kira Webb, freelance logistics specialist. You can find my contact info in whatever database you've got me in under those 17 smuggling charges." Her ship's engines flared again, and she was already moving, already putting distance between them before Vex'lar could even think to respond. Trillax approached cautiously. "Should I report this as an equipment malfunction, sir?" Vex'lar watched the human ship become a speck against the star field, then disappear entirely as it jumped to faster-than-light travel. "Yes. Tractor beam failure due to overload. Happens in high debris environments. We'll need to return to base for repairs." "And the fighters?" "Training accident. They need more practice in asteroid navigation." Trillax's sensor stalks drooped with something that might have been relief. "The crew will appreciate the discretion, Commander." Vex'lar turned from the viewport, his mandibles finally clicking again, though the sound was thoughtful rather than amused. "Trillax, pull up every file we have on human combat doctrine, survival statistics, and cultural psychology. Full historical analysis." "Sir?" "I want to understand them, really understand them. Because if one smuggler in a cargo hauler can do what we just witnessed, I need to know what an organized human military force is actually capable of." "We're not at war with Earth or any of the human colonies." "Not yet," Vex'lar said quietly. "But after today, I'm not so sure that's because they're weak. I'm starting to think it might be because they're patient." He looked back at the viewport, at the empty space where Kira Webb had been. "Make sure that footage from the engagement is archived in my private files. Something tells me we're going to want to study it." "You think she'll become a problem?" Vex'lar's mandibles stopped clicking entirely. "No, I think she's a warning, a preview. And I think the galaxy has been underestimating humans for far too long." Somewhere in the distance, streaking toward Terminus Station at speeds that would make most species queasy, Kira Webb checked her chronometer and smiled. Right on schedule, despite the delay. The cargo in her hold, carefully secured and completely illegal in 7 different sectors, hummed with whatever strange energy it contained. She'd made a lot of deliveries in her 5 years of running freight across the frontier. Some legal, most not, all of them paying well enough to keep her ship fueled and her creditors at a manageable distance. But days like this? Days when she reminded the so-called apex species that humans weren't prey? Those were the days she lived for. Her communications panel beeped with an incoming message, encrypted and coded. She opened it with one hand while the other adjusted their trajectory, eyes never leaving her navigation display. The message was short. Package received. Payment transferred. Well done, as always, Webb. And congratulations on your latest dance with the Unity Fleet. Word travels fast out here. Kira grinned and typed back. They're learning. Slowly. Give it another decade and they might actually respect us. The response came instantly. Let's hope it doesn't take a war to speed that process along. Her grin faded slightly. Yeah, let's hope. She closed the channel and cranked up her music, some old Earth rock from before humanity had even left their home system, back when the idea of aliens was still just science fiction. The irony wasn't lost on her. 3 hours and 42 minutes until Terminus Station. Plenty of time to relax, maybe catch some sleep, maybe plan her next job. Or maybe, just maybe, think about Commander Vex'lar and the look in his optical sensors when he'd realized his entire tactical advantage meant nothing against one stubborn human in a beat-up cargo hauler. She liked that look, wanted to see it more often, spread across more faces, more species, more sectors. The galaxy thought humans were soft, weak, new to the game, and still learning the rules. They had no idea. Humans weren't learning the rules. They were deciding which ones were worth breaking. Terminus Station orbited a dying red giant, its skeletal superstructure casting shadows across the docking bays like the ribs of some ancient metal beast. Kira brought her ship in smooth, ignoring the automated warnings about structural instability and radiation levels. Terminus wasn't the kind of place that attracted safety inspectors. The docking clamps seized her hull with a grinding thunk that echoed through the cargo bay. She powered down the main systems, grabbed her sidearm out of habit, and made her way to the airlock. The station's atmosphere tasted like recycled metal and bad decisions. Her contact was waiting at the end of the docking tube, a Vrelian named Krix, whose translucent skin pulsed with bioluminescent patterns that indicated nervousness. Good. Nervous clients paid better, asked fewer questions. "You're late," Krix said, his vocoder translating the chemical signals his species used for communication. "By 3 minutes. Your standards are getting unreasonable." Kira keyed open her cargo hold, revealing the container she'd risked her neck transporting. One temporal flux regulator, fresh off the black market on Helix Prime, completely untraceable, exactly as ordered. Krix's skin flashed purple, which meant surprise. "You actually got it. The real one, not a replica?" "Do I look like an amateur?" "Payment first, then you can scan it all you want." The credit transfer took 15 seconds, more money than most people on the frontier saw in a year. Kira checked the account twice, then nodded. "Pleasure doing business. Don't use that thing to break the universe, or at least don't tell anyone where you got it." "Wait." Krix's patterns shifted to orange. Curiosity. "Is it true? What they're saying about you and the Karthex warship?" Kira paused at the airlock threshold. "Depends what they're saying." "That you embarrassed Commander Vex'lar, destroyed 6 fighters, and escaped without a scratch. The betting pools are going wild. Half the station thinks it's propaganda. The other half wants to hire you." "It was 3 fighters, technically. The other 3 took themselves out. And I didn't destroy anybody, just encouraged them to reconsider their life choices." She grinned. "But yeah, it happened." "You're not concerned? The Unity Fleet doesn't forget insults." "The Unity Fleet should learn to pick better targets. See you around, Krix." She was halfway back to her ship when her comm unit chirped. Private channel, military encryption. Her stomach tightened, but she accepted the call anyway. Vex'lar's face appeared on her wrist display, his mandibles completely still. "Miss Webb, I hope I'm not interrupting your delivery." "Already completed, actually. What can I do for you, Commander? Need something smuggled? I told you my offer stands." "I need information." His voice carried none of the arrogance from their earlier encounter. "There's a situation developing in the Outer Rim, something that concerns both the Unity Fleet and, I suspect, independent operators like yourself." Kira found a quiet corner of the docking bay and leaned against a support pillar. "I'm listening. 3 days ago, a research station went silent. Standard quarantine protocols suggest equipment failure, but the last transmission we received was unusual. The scientists reported encountering something in the asteroid they were mining. Something that moved. Space is full of things that move, Vex. Be more specific. Something that adapted, that learned, that killed 12 researchers in under 4 minutes using their own tools against them." He paused. "Does that sound like anything you've heard about?" Kira's blood went cold. She had heard about it, whispered rumors in stations like this one. Stories that smugglers and pirates traded like currency. The drift plague. The entity. The thing from between stars that shouldn't exist, but somehow did. "You're telling me the Unity Fleet can't handle a single contaminated research station?" "I'm telling you that 3 ships have gone to investigate. None have returned. And our last drone feed showed something that our xenobiologists can't explain. We need someone who thinks differently. Someone who doesn't follow standard protocols. Someone expendable, you mean?" Vex'lar's mandibles finally clicked, but it was a sound of acknowledgement, not amusement. "Someone who survives when they shouldn't. There will be payment, official salvage rights, and a full pardon for those 17 smuggling charges." Kira should have said no. Should have taken her payment from Crix and headed to the next job, the next system, the next close call that she'd talk her way out of. But something in Vex'lar's tone caught her attention. Fear. Real fear from a species that prided itself on tactical superiority. "Send me the coordinates, and Vex, this better not be a trap. If I wanted to trap you, I'd have done it when you were distracted by my fighters." There was almost humor in his translated voice. "Besides, I'm starting to think humanity might be useful to have as allies, rather than adversaries." The connection cut before she could respond. 2 hours later, Kira's ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the research station's sector. Her sensors immediately screamed warnings about electromagnetic distortions, gravity fluctuations, and something her computer kept labeling as unknown energy signature. The research station hung in space like a gutted fish, its hull peeled open in geometric patterns that made her eyes hurt to look at directly. Around it drifted the wreckage of what had been Unity Fleet vessels, their hulls twisted into impossible shapes. "Okay," she muttered to herself, hands flying over her controls. "Not loving this. Definitely not loving this." Her comm unit activated automatically, and Vex'lar's voice came through. "Webb, do not approach the station. We've established a command post 12,000 kilometers from your current position. Proceed there immediately." "What happened to those ships?" "We don't know. The entity, whatever it is, doesn't register on conventional sensors. It manipulates matter at a molecular level, restructures technology to serve its purposes. Every weapon we've fired at it has been absorbed and turned against us." Kira stared at the twisted wreckage, her mind racing. "You said it adapts, that it learns. Correct. So you threw predictable military tactics at it, and it learned to counter them. Typical." She adjusted her trajectory, not toward the command post, but toward the research station itself. "What you need isn't more firepower. You need chaos." "Webb, what are you doing?" "Something stupid. But that's kind of my specialty. Keep your fleet back, and tell them not to shoot at anything unless I specifically tell them to. This thing learns from patterns, right? So we don't give it patterns." She cut the connection before Vex'lar could order her to stand down and pushed her engines to full burn. The research station grew larger in her viewport, And now she could see movement in the torn sections, something that looked like liquid metal, flowing through the corridors, reshaping itself, searching. Her weapon systems activated, but she didn't fire. Instead, she routed all power to her shields and navigation, then keyed her comm to broadcast on all frequencies, including some that most species couldn't even hear. "Hey there, cosmic nightmare. I'm Kira Webb, and I'm really hoping you can understand me, because I'd love to not die today. I know you're smart. I know you figured out how to turn ships into origami, and probably could do the same to me. But here's the thing. The entity, if it was listening, gave no response. But the flowing metal in the station slowed, as if considering. You've been fighting the Unity Fleet, and they're predictable. They follow rules, protocols, established tactics. But me? I'm human. And humans are the universe's wild card. We don't make sense. We survive things we shouldn't. We adapt faster than evolution should allow. So before you decide to tear my ship apart, consider this. What if I'm not here to fight you? The metal stopped moving entirely. What if I'm here to understand you? Because that's what humans do. We look at something that terrifies everyone else, and we get curious. So how about we talk, just for a minute? Then, if you still want to kill me, at least you'll have a new experience to add to your collection." Silence. Nothing but the hum of her life support and the distant radiation of the red giant. Then her console erupted with cascading data, information pouring in faster than her systems could process. Images, concepts, mathematical equations that described realities she'd never imagined. And underneath it all, something that felt almost like words. Alone, lost, home broken, searching. Kira's breath caught. You're not attacking. You're trying to communicate. You're trying to build something. More data flooded her systems, and her ship's AI struggled to translate. The entity had been dormant in that asteroid for millennia, a fragment of something larger, something that existed in dimensions humans hadn't discovered yet. The mining operation had woken it, and it was trying to rebuild itself, to return to whatever form it once held. But it only had the materials at hand: ships, stations, technology it didn't understand. "You're lost," Kira whispered. "You don't know how to get home." Affirmative. The concept came through so clearly it bypassed her translator entirely, landing directly in her mind. Okay, I can work with this. But you need to stop destroying ships. The Unity Fleet thinks you're hostile, and they're going to escalate. Eventually, they'll crack this whole sector just to contain you. Why help? Because you remind me of us. Humans, I mean. We were stuck on one planet for most of our history, looking up at the stars, trying to figure out how to reach them. We were lost, too. We're still lost, honestly, but we're getting better at navigating. So maybe, just maybe, I can help you do the same. She pulled up her navigation charts, her astrogation data, everything she'd learned in 5 years of running cargo across the frontier. "I can't send you home. I don't even know where home is for something like you. But I can show you the maps. I can give you the tools to search. And in exchange, you let these people go. No more ships, no more deaths. Deal?" The silence stretched so long Kira thought she'd miscalculated. Then the twisted wreckage of the Unity Fleet vessels began to untwist, metal flowing backward, structures reassembling themselves. Not perfectly, but enough that she could see pods ejecting, life signs flickering back online. The entity was releasing the survivors it had absorbed. Her console chimed with acceptance of a data transfer request. She authorized it, and felt her ship's entire navigation database copied in an instant. In return, the entity uploaded something to her systems. Coordinates. Thousands of them. Locations across the galaxy where it sensed fragments of itself. Pieces that might help it become whole again. You're giving me a treasure map. Not treasure. Self. Find pieces. Help search. And if I do? If I collect these fragments? Learn, grow, remember. Show others, not alone. Kira smiled despite herself. Yeah, not alone. I get that. The entity withdrew from the station, condensing itself into a sphere of impossible geometry that her sensors insisted was there and not there simultaneously. Then it launched itself toward the nearest coordinates it had provided, vanishing with a ripple that made space-time shudder. Her comm exploded with transmissions. Vex'lar's voice cut through the chaos. Webb, what just happened? Our sensors show the entity departing. The survivors are signaling for rescue. Did you? I talked to it. Turns out, when you don't immediately try to kill something, sometimes it doesn't try to kill you back. Revolutionary concept, I know. You're saying that entity, that thing that destroyed 3 of our ships, was simply misunderstood? I'm saying it was lost and scared and lashing out, and nobody bothered to check if there was an alternative to violence. Sound familiar? The silence that followed told her Vex'lar understood exactly what she meant. The Unity Council will want a full report. They can have one after I get my pardon in writing, my salvage rights notarized, and a significant bonus for resolving your crisis without firing a single shot. You're insufferable. I'm effective. There's a difference. She checked the coordinates the entity had given her. And I'm taking a vacation. A long one. I've got some sightseeing to do. Webb, Kira. Vex'lar's tone shifted, became almost personal. Thank you for showing us a different way. Don't thank me yet. This is just the beginning. That entity. It's not the only thing out here that doesn't fit into your neat little categories. The galaxy's bigger and stranger than any of us realize. And humans? We're just getting started figuring out our place in it. She ended the transmission and set course for the first coordinates, her ship humming with possibility. Behind her, Unity Fleet vessels moved in to rescue the survivors, to study the now peaceful research station, to write reports that would change how they viewed threats and first contact situations. And somewhere in the depths of space, traveling faster than thought toward a reunion it had dreamed of for ages, the entity carried with it a new understanding. Not all biological life was hostile. Some were curious, some were kind, some were human. Kira Webb leaned back in her pilot's chair, feet up on the console in a way that would have horrified any proper captain, and grinned at the stars stretching before her. The universe thought humans were weak because they were new, unpredictable because they were reckless, dangerous because they didn't follow the established rules. They had no idea how right they were. And Kira? She was going to enjoy every single moment of proving it. Her ship jumped to faster-than-light travel, leaving behind a sector that would never quite look at humans the same way again. In the command center of his warship, Vex'lar watched her go, his mandibles clicking in what might have been respect. The galaxy was changing. Humanity was rising. And for the first time in his long military career, Commander Vex'lar found himself genuinely curious about what would happen next. The Alpha Beast had roared its challenge. The human had grinned back. And in that moment, everyone watching learned a fundamental truth. Humans didn't bow to superior force. They broke the rules instead. They rewrote the game. They turned enemies into allies and impossibilities into opportunities. That wasn't weakness. That was power. Raw, unpredictable, terrifying power wrapped in a stubborn refusal to accept limitations. The galaxy would learn. One way or another, it would learn. Kira Webb intended to be a very thorough teacher.